demolition in that building.
Oh. It looks the same when I went up to the window one
He
time.
took a lot out of it, I'll tell you
yeah.
that.
Yeah.
It's only a shell left.
Kind of good joke.
Are you the first person to
Close
vote?
enough.
No, but I want to.
You weren't the first person to vote?
No.
Well, you guys were there at like 6 o'clock in the morning, weren't you?
We were
6:30?
there like 6:30,
Yeah.
but there was probably 5 people that voted. I looked at the list, 5 people that voted before us.
I guess we're
They're not
close
the
enough
poll
here.
people, were they?
Will the meeting please come to order? It's 7 o'clock, September 13th, 2018. I'd like to begin with the pledge to the flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can I have a motion to accept the agenda? We may be jumping around a bit in the agenda here, but the items should be pretty much in there.
So moved.
Made by Chris Kennan,
Second.
second by Ralph Fidelli. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Do we have any public comment on agenda items only? If not, we'll move on to committee reports, department reports, and Bob, I guess you're up.
So first I have a amended agreement for the expenditure of highway monies. And the changes on 2A, adding in the Mill Road culvert replacement and the highway funds that will be spent for that, separate from the grant. The highway funds a total of $184,280.56. That's the only change to the agreement.
As everyone knows, we got a grant for $225,000 for the work on Lower Mill Road. The actual project, when it was bid, came in at $83,000. And this just represents the difference between what the grant was and what the bid price was. So can I have a motion to accept this, the agreement for the expenditures?
So moved.
Made by John Merwin, seconded by
Second.
John Midwood. All in favor? Aye.
Okay, you guys need to sign each copy.
Yep.
Please. There's 2 copies.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, next I have the results of the sealed bids for sand, gravel, asphalt, fuels. The major changes were in hot mix asphalt, that went up $10 per ton over what it was this time last year, which equates to $20,000 additional to our highway budget. Road oils for oil and stone went up 50 cents a gallon, and the fuels, gas, diesel, heating oil went up 50 cents a gallon. The rest of it, the stone, sand, things like that, pretty much stayed the same, no big changes there. And the only other thing is, in addition to the town bids, by the way, the bids in bold are my recommendations for the board to accept. And in addition to that, I would like to use the Dutchess County contract for asphalt, for Amenia asphalt, because it's much closer for us than the companies that bid on the town bids. But I did propose to accept one of the town bids for asphalt as a backup.
So you need approval for that?
You will. The only thing I would say, even on your asphalt prices and your fuel bid prices, those, should prices go up, will also escalate. There is an escalation clause in there.
Escalation, de-escalation, yes.
Escalation, de-escalation. So although you have a standard price to begin with, depending on what prices do afterwards, really determines what happens to those prices. Okay, do I have a motion to accept the bid prices?
So moved.
Made by John Merwin, seconded by second by John Midwood. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, I don't see a representative here from the police department tonight. We have, I don't believe there's an assessor's report on the table this evening. We have from planning and zoning, you have their report on the table. Lisa, do you have anything?
Well, just one thing, that the Northeast Historical Society is having, they're part of the Dutchess County Tavern Tour, and it'll be next Friday on the 21st at the American Legion, and they'll be having, it represents World War I, so they'll be having some stories from World War I.
Is there any charge for that?
It's, if you buy the tickets in advance, it's $20,
$20.
and there'll be a
Okay.
picnic dinner afterwards. And I know that the Legion historian has been doing a lot of research within the last year for this presentation, so I think it'll
Actually,
be an
longer than
excellent
that.
presentation.
Yeah,
When is it?
Friday, the 21st of September, from 6 to 8:30, right?
yeah, Sean Clay is very knowledgeable about this subject, and he's done a lot of
Yes, he
research on
has.
it. Okay, good. Any other committee activity or anything? The only thing I might say, going back to the highway department, you might just tell them that on the Lower Mill Road, we are, the company that won the bid has set up at least the signs down there. And work should begin on that project down there on Monday. So I would advise not using Lower Mill Road because you'll not be able to travel on it. Okay. Can I have a resolution to accept the Water District #1 benefit assessment roll? And we'll set the schedule for public hearing on October 11th at 7:15.
So moved.
Made by John Merwin, seconded by Chris Kennan. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We have a few minutes yet before we can begin the public meeting on CDBG. And the rest are pretty much public hearings, so we'll kind of skip to the end here. And we have approval of minutes of previous meetings. Does anyone have, let's see here.
It's 2 sets of minutes.
Okay, we have the minutes from August 9th, 2018, town board meeting. Anyone have any additions, corrections, changes? Okay. I believe Chris might have had something, but he gave that to you
He gave
earlier,
those to
so
me, right? Yeah.
with just including those changes
As amended, yeah.
as amended, can I have a motion to accept the minutes?
So moved.
Made by Ralph Fidelli, seconded by Chris Kennan. All in favor? Aye. Pardon me?
We have one more set of minutes.
Oh, yeah,
You could
yeah.
just do that under the same item. It's August 23rd.
Yes, okay, we have one more set of minutes for August 23rd. Are there any additions, corrections, changes to those minutes?
No.
If not, can I have a motion to accept them?
So moved.
Made by Ralph Fidelli, seconded by
Oh, second.
John Merwin. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, and we have our representative from the public here, Dave.
Evening, everybody.
Evening.
So, we're about on par with what we did last year. For August, we had 23 incidents, complaints in the town, and 71 in the village. Much of the village, I think, was from Speed Week and speed enforcement. So I think a lot of those were traffic tickets. So that was a total of 93 incidents, and out of that, there were 2 arrests in the town and 6 arrests in the village. Last year, we had just 3 more incidents in the town and 3 more incidents in the village for a total of 100. Had quite a few more arrests in the village. There were 2 arrests in the town and 2 in the village last year. So pretty much on par
Yeah.
with what last year's statistics were.
Okay, very good. Any questions, comments? Okay,
All right.
very good. Thank you very much, Dave.
Have a good evening,
Have a quiet
everybody.
evening.
We'll see you now. Okay, I guess we're close enough to 7:15. I'd like to open the public hearing on CDBG grant ideas, and if we can come up with, agree on one, accepting.
Can you just make the motion to open the public hearing?
Can I have a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Made by John Midwood, seconded by
Second.
Ralph Fidelli. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Does the public have any ideas for CDBG grant that we might consider? Yes, Chow?
2 ideas related to water. One is to put water fountains someplace down near the rail trail. I think that might already be in the village's wish list. And in addition to that, if we could have some kind of monitoring system for water where people could know if their water is good to drink, it might reduce our use of bottled water.
Okay, the only problem is most of this issue really is handled by the village. That's not, we only handle outside of the village. Monitoring anything of that nature would be through the village.
But if you can imagine just taking the water out of your tap that may come from your well.
They already take samples now of, I know I had one taken earlier this spring.
I think she might be saying like almost at her own home, which is not on the water system, right? Are you talking like out in
Correct.
town?
Yes.
Oh, okay,
With
outside of,
private wells.
Private wells.
Oh.
Private water.
okay.
And that would, if there was some way of, an easy way of having it monitored, you know, maybe it's a bring your water to the
Yeah.
town all day.
I will check and see, but I'm going to be quite honest with you, I'm not sure if that falls under CDBG grant criteria.
What kinds of things did?
Things that normally have to do, say, with improving the ability, such as what we're doing with the doors here to make things ADA accessible. The composting toilet down at the rail trail was another one. Sidewalks.
Like an electric car charging station fall into that?
That actually, I believe, falls under a different possible grant.
That might be under the climate smart stuff.
Yeah, I
that's
think
what
they're,
Akron did.
yeah. That's something that we might look into, but I think it would be under a different criteria for that. I might just throw out there one idea that the village has, and that concerns sidewalks on the south side of the village going down the street there. Anyone who's walked down through there knows that there are various different slabs there that are broken up. It's not in the greatest of shape. It's something that probably should be considered. And that is the type of thing that actually comes under the criteria. Yes, Bill?
On the subject of sidewalks.
Yes.
The Boulevard District is really in need of some sidewalks.
We put in for that before, Bill. And what the major objection and why it has never been considered is that if we had that store, the supermarket, out at the end of the Boulevard District there, it would have been considered for sidewalks out through there. Without that, they were telling us that there wasn't really enough traffic there to make it worthwhile.
So it wouldn't be possible to apply for a grant going up to, say, the supermarket or the Legion Hall and kind of end at that point and
we could
wait until we have a further reason to expand?
We could possibly try that. The only thing that I might say is that probably, normally in these types of things, it's better to go in jointly on trying to get grants like this, because then it becomes a more than one municipality trying to do something. Well, that's what I was just said before, was they're looking to do the sidewalks, you know, on the other side of the street, opposite where they had done them before there. What we might consider is going with them on this one this year, and possibly they might go with us next year on it.
Yeah,
Yes,
as
Chris.
you know, somebody involved in the business on the south side of Main Street.
Yeah.
That sidewalk is in terrible
It's in terrible shape.
It's got, I mean, people have stumbled over. some
And
of
it's
the holes.
surprising somebody hasn't fallen and broken a leg down there.
Yeah, it's really, it's pretty bad.
Yeah. Yeah. If it's all right, are there any other ideas or anything else that we might
I'd
consider?
just say that I do like the idea of doing that in the boulevard, if that was possible.
I think-
At least out as far as the Legion or
Yeah.
the talk of the town, or, you know, that area.
I know that we've applied for it before.
Yeah.
That application has been put on actually a couple of years running. And the answer has always been, you don't have enough traffic.
Yeah, but maybe a limited run out there with the village
Possibly.
support.
Yeah.
might
Yeah.
help.
Yeah. And something we might consider next year. Any other ideas? Anything? If there's nothing else, I'll ask for a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Made by John Midwood, seconded by John Merwin. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Can I have a motion to accept the village's proposal to go in on the for a grant on the for the sidewalks? We would need to do probably some type of a support letter and something of that nature. So can I have a motion to do that? Made by Ralph Fideli, seconded by Chris Kennan. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. I think we're going to skip a little bit here. Let me see, what are we? Actually, maybe I can get in one more thing so that we don't have to do this afterwards before we take up the I have a budget adjustment. In A fund, the total amount of the adjustment, we have an expense increase of $3,462, less than a revenue increase of $346. Can I have a motion to accept that? Made by John Merwin, seconded by
Second.
Ralph Fideli. I have one other one here. In DB fund, an expense increase of $1,908, less a revenue increase of $1,908. Made by,
We vote on the last one.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Is that for both of them? No, it's the first,
This is the second one now.
okay, that was the first one.
That was the first
That was
one.
the first.
Now we're
Okay.
doing the second one.
Okay, so who first? Who made the motion?
The motion was made by Ralph Fideli, and it was seconded by John Merwin.
Okay.
Now we are doing for DB fund, for the highway fund, expense increase of $1,908, less a revenue increase of $1,908. Can I have a motion to accept that?
So moved.
Made by Chris Kennedy, seconded by
Second.
John Midwood. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Actually, I guess,
725.
pardon me? Yep.
725.
Okay. If it is all right here, I would like to take these, I have two public hearings here. The first public hearing I'd like to do is the tax override. Because I think we will probably have less discussion on that, maybe not.
Can you do that when it's been
I don't know.
scheduled at 7:35?
See, but well, local laws,
So,
But-
yeah, you better wait for.
okay. Then we'll have to do the other one first, and the numbering of the law is the only thing I was thinking
Oh,
about here.
those can be changed. That
Okay.
doesn't have to stick to that, yeah.
Okay.
Change, but we change.
All
You
right.
can change the numbers.
Then it is 7:25. I'd like to open the public hearing on local law number 1, a law to regulate solar energy systems. Can I have a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Made by Ralph Fideli, seconded by Chris Kennan. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Do we have any comments from the audience on the solar law? Do you have any comments from the board?
How heavy regulated is it going to be?
Well,
Regulate.
pardon me?
When you use the term regulate.
Well, there's a proposed law that's.
Yeah, it's a proposed law. It's on the site, the website. The only thing that I noticed in there, and I have one question maybe about. I noticed that it says that, and this is for large solar arrays, solar farms, that there is 100-foot, requires 100-foot between any boundaries with any properties close to it. I think in most circumstances that works. My question is, on some of our major highways coming into Northeast and into the village here, if 100-foot setback is sufficient, yes, Ralph?
George, I happen to agree with you. In fact, if any of you have ever driven along Route 23 up in Prairieville, there is a solar farm right on the north side of 23. And it isn't very attractive to look at. And that's just a personal feeling. I would rather, either look at cornfields or solar or soybean farms than solar panels. There's a provision in the solar law that I think is very important, and I'm going to read it. Solar farm buildings, and it says appropriate landscaping and or screening materials may be required to help screen the solar power plant and accessory structures from scenic roadways, parklands, historic properties, and neighborhood residences.
What section?
This is, I've got it on page 13.
Okay, I just want to get to that, okay.
I thought that was kind of very important because as you're driving up or down Route 22 or 44, now you see a lot of farmland and it's being used for farm purposes. We have to make sure that we allow for enough of a setback from the main road so that you really don't see a lot of these solar panels. They're probably, the solar farms are going to be situated very close to major lines, power lines. So it would make sense that they be somewhere along Route 22. And we have to be aware of the fact that proper screening is going to be important, I would think, anyway.
I tend to agree with you on this. And also, I think everyone who has been associated with or has been following the comprehensive plan, one of the biggest items in there that everybody wants to protect is the natural beauty of the area. And that tends to mean, as it was outlined in there, of the natural fields, the trees, the forests, the lots, everything that we have. That right now, when people come to our town, that's the reason why they're coming here. They're coming to oftentimes get out of the city maybe, that, you know, they're interested in, you know, seeing the country as it should be. And I think maybe a further setback on you know, the placement of these solar arrays would be in order. You can put trees in the front, but if you've only got a 100-foot buffer, by the time those trees grow fairly high, then you're probably going to be shading some of those arrays to begin with. So I believe that, you know, we need a bigger buffer, a bigger setback from the main roads. Yes, Bill.
So I understand what you're saying and agree with it. I think that the planting part is really important, and you could specify plants that would not reach a height that would actually hide or shield the solar panels, but still 100-foot, you know, mown grass buffer is not much of a remediation. So there's got to be some planting.
Right. Right. The question then becomes, how much of a buffer do we consider, and how we might do that?
I think what we probably want to do, and I defer to Jan and the committee on this, is come up with some language that would allow the planning board to increase the buffer to ensure that the visual impacts on neighboring properties and major highways are minimized to the fullest extent possible. Now that always comes into play during the environmental review of the project, so the planning board in doing its seeker review, oh no, this would be a special permit, so it would be the zoning board. The zoning board in the special permit application, as part of its environmental review, would always have the power to mitigate the visual impacts. Even though it only says a 100-foot setback, they could require a much larger setback depending on the size of the facility and the surrounding area and the size of the property. It's hard to come up with a fixed minimum buffer. I think I prefer to work on some language that allows flexibility but recognizes that the Zoning Board of Appeals would be required to increase the buffer accordingly based upon the site-specific conditions and the visual impacts.
So the 100-foot is just the minimum.
100 feet is a minimum. Even if we left it as is, the zoning board would have the power to increase the setback. I mean, you can't make these things invisible, unfortunately.
Right.
Did that come from the Rhinebeck law?
I don't think so. I don't know where that came from. I looked. Is that what they have in the Rhinebeck?
I think they have 75 feet.
It might have been 75 feet. But the way the law, we have one application now in Rhinebeck. We've got several in Hyde Park actually, but the one application in Rhinebeck is going through an enormous environmental review by the planning board. I mean, they have required the applicant to do visual impacts, all kinds of screening, visual impact analysis, even a noise impact analysis. That I didn't quite understand. But this doesn't mean it's going to be 100 feet. But I think it is important to put language in here that recognizes the specific mandate and ability of the planning board to increase the buffer depending on the circumstances. So I'm happy to try to, work with Jan and see if we can come up with some language that we.
I think if we can strengthen that.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. But it's hard to just say, 200 feet or 300 feet, because you may want, in some cases, you may want it more than that, and in some cases, it may not matter because of the size of the facility. There may be a natural buffer between the road and. There may be all kinds of screening that exists, through trees and plantings that you may not need an enormous buffer. But I do agree that we should. And I was surprised I looked back at some of the other laws, and I didn't see any of them that had a specific large buffer. And that's probably because it's anticipated that the buffer will be set by the zoning board, but to avoid any ambiguity in the law, to make sure that it's clear that the zoning board has the mandate to fix appropriate buffers, we'll put language in there. I think that's, hopefully, we can come up with something. I'm sure we can.
Any other comments, anything else that we need to take into consideration on this law?
Well, we can't vote on it tonight because I want to make a change to it, and that's a fairly significant change. I also, we did get comments from, we did get a response from Dutchess County Planning, and they said it's a matter of local concern. They had no comments, but I was told that the referral to the planning board didn't get to them in time. I don't know what was sent to the clerk, and the clerk was on vacation, so
It just
the
got
planning
missed.
board has only had a week, and by statute, we're obligated to give them 30 days. So even if we didn't have any changes into the law, we'd have to wait either for the planning board to weigh in on it. If they're not going to weigh in on it, I'd want to wait 30 days. So we're going to have to defer to the next meeting. And I would urge the planning board to take a hard look at it, because if there are, and you know, I just realized it should be, the zoning board should take a look at this too, because the zoning board has.
Yeah, I think we already went over it.
Pardon?
I think they've seen it.
You did review it, okay.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, in most municipalities, the planning board does special permit review, but not in ours, it's the ZBA. So if the ZBA has any comments that they haven't already conveyed, we should hear.
It was a little bit later, tonight.
Yes, well, you're right. So, I'm assuming that's been taken care of.
Maureen, the planning board did submit their comments to the first draft from April, and then we had that special meeting, and that's when the solar committee updated it, but not to the final one. Right.
Draft.
Okay.
I don't want to take a chance on,
Okay.
you know, violating this. Well, we can't do it anyway, because I have to change this.
Sure.
We have to put that language in there. And I did prepare, if you can just distribute it to everybody, I did prepare a part 2 of the environmental assessment form, and a part 3, which basically gives us our rationale. You know, my recommendation is that we issue what we call a negative deck that doesn't require the draft environmental impact statement, but if you read what I've drafted in the part 3, that's the rationale for it. So if anybody, maybe take a look at it between now and then the next meeting, we're going to pass that. I'll go over the part 2, and but if you have any questions about the language or disagree with anything I've done, and then I should have this I'll make contact with you, and we'll see if we can get this to you way before the next meeting.
Yeah, I'd just like to say that the initial paragraph of the law, which is paragraph 170-73A, is a description of the solar law and what the purposes of the solar law. And it does mention that one of its purposes is to reduce the need for fossil fuel generation of power, and that this is actually a purpose of the town, a necessary and priority component of the town of Northeast's current and long-term sustainability agenda, and that it's also part of the town's commitment to be a climate-smart community. So the passage of this law will actually get additional credits or points for the town of Northeast in its bid to become a certified climate-smart community.
Can I have a motion to keep the meeting open until next meeting, which is going to be on October 11th, and we'll set public hearing, I guess, or
well,
open?
I'm just wondering, the law in final form has to be on your desk 7 days before the meeting. If Yon and I could possibly get agree on a tweak to the law and get it to you, and then you can put it on the website. And make sure each member of the board has been given a copy of the amended law. We can just vote on it at the next meeting. We don't have to then schedule another public hearing.
Okay.
So we're just gonna continue, just leave this.
Just
public
leave
hearing?
the,
Okay.
leave the meeting open, yes, the hearing open. Okay. Next thing on the agenda is public hearing on local law number 2, a law to override the tax levy limit for fiscal year 2019. And can I ask you, Lisa, to please read that?
You want me to read the law itself?
The resolution.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I need a motion to open the public hearing.
Can I have a motion to open the public hearing? Made by John Merwin, seconded by
Second.
John Midwood. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Resolution adopting a local, do you want to see if there's any public comment on
We'll
that?
see public comment first then, and then we'll read it. Are there, do we have any public comment on the law to override the tax levy?
It's 2% this year.
It's 2% this year. We still have the issue of the ambulance service, which adds to our budget here. Although this year it is smaller than it has been in past years, it still represents a $30,000 increase, which will bring it up to $340,000. And that's why we're seeking to pass the tax override law. I might just also add that I think almost all other municipalities, whether they intend to or have to exceed the tax cap or not, generally pass this law so that it gives the opportunity to be able to, whether you may not need it, but if you do, then it's there, it can be utilized. So is there any further discussion concerning that? If not, can I have a motion to close the...
Okay, you want to close the public hearing?
Close the public hearing. Made by Chris Kennan, seconded by Ralph Fidelli. All in favor? Aye. I want to read the...
Resolution adopting a local law to override the tax levy limit for fiscal year 2019 pursuant to General Municipal Law 3C as local law, this will be number 1 since solar wasn't passed yet, of 2018. Whereas the town board determined that it may be necessary for the town of Northeast to exceed the limit on the amount of real property taxes that may be levied by the town of Northeast pursuant to General Municipal Law 3C for fiscal year 2019. And whereas the town board by resolution dated August 9, 2018, accepted a proposed local law to override the tax levy limit for fiscal year 2019 pursuant to General Municipal Law 3C for commencement of the local law adoption process. And whereas the town board scheduled a duly noticed public hearing on said local law to be held September 13, 2018. Whereas the town board opened the public hearing and heard comments on said local law and closed public hearing on September 13th. Whereas the town board has determined that this action is a type 2 action under seeker and does not require environmental review. And whereas the town board has determined that this is in the best interest of the town of Northeast to adopt this local law. Now therefore be it resolved that the town board hereby adopts local law 1 of 2018 entitled a local law to override the tax levy limit for fiscal year 2019 pursuant to General Municipal Law 3C, and it is further resolved that the town clerk is hereby directed to file said local law in the office of the Department of State as required by law. whereupon the above resolution was.
Can I have a motion to accept the resolution?
So moved.
Made by Ralph Fidelli. Second?
I'll second.
All right, and then
John
we just
Moore.
need a roll call.
Yep.
George?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Ralph?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
And John?
Aye.
If through some miracle you don't need to exceed the tax cap, we would pass a local law rescinding.
Rescinding it, yes. Warren, do you have some?
Yeah, I have a few things. ADA Accessible CDBG grant, if you remember, I had told you that Ann Saylor had recommended that we have a meeting with the village and the town and her office and our engineer to discuss some issues that she had for going forward with that. I attempted and was very unsuccessful in trying to put a meeting together before I had left for vacation in August. So she and I have spoken, and Ann is going to set up a meeting. She has this, what's it called, bubble or something? There's a more advanced way of getting people to respond to the meetings, which is beyond my capabilities. So she's going to do that, and I've given her 3 dates that she and I can do it, and then so you'll be getting something. Hopefully we'll have that meeting soon. So make sure you respond to it when you get that. The other thing is I spoke to Christy Bonomo about the shared services. We were awarded the grant. It was approved by the Dutchess County Legislature, but she would not tell me what the amount was because it's going to be, you probably know what the amount is. But she didn't want it revealed until the county announced it on Monday. So that will be announced on Monday. She and I have talked about the next steps, what we need to do once we get that grant. So I will be working with you to start moving forward with the project. We have to. The first step would be to retain the services of an engineer, and we have to do that through a bidding process. So I'll coordinate that with you and the engineer, and we may have a special meeting. Maybe we could do it at the same time we have the meeting on the ADA, but I'll let you know. So things are going smoothly with that. On the domestic partner health insurance front, I did review if you recall, I don't know if the public remembers, the town board was willing and anxious to provide health insurance coverage for a domestic partner, for any employees who have domestic partners. And you had determined that MVP offers that, and it's something that would be affordable at this point for the town. The problem was trying to come up with some language to define a domestic partnership and put some provisions in our handbook for that. And I have come up with that, and I cobbled together from various sources a definition of domestic partnership that we can put in our employee handbook if everybody is of mind to do that. And the definition shall mean both the employee and his or her partner must be town of Northeast residents. The employee must be employed by the town of Northeast either on a full-time basis or on a part-time basis with a regular work schedule of at least 24 hours per week. Both partners must be 18 years of age or older. Neither partner is married or related by blood in a manner that would bar his or her marriage in New York State. Both partners have a close and committed personal relationship, live together and have been living together on a continuous basis. I put 6 months, a year is another requirement. 6 months I think is fair. Prior to the commencement of the coverage, both partners must truthfully state an identical primary residential address on an application form to be provided by the town to establish a domestic partnership. So we will have to come up with something that we're going to want our employees to sign so we can they can verify that they meet these requirements. Both partners must share a committed and exclusive relationship and must be financially interdependent. And the partners must be able to provide documentation to the town to demonstrate satisfaction of these requirements, which may include a written statement of their relationship and documents evidencing such financial interdependence, such as a joint mortgage or joint lease or tax return, evidencing that one partner claims as a dependent the other party a partner on federal and state tax returns. Now, Chris, you had an objection to one of the...
It was equivalent, really not an objection. The use of the word exclusive relationships, it, seemed to me to be moralizing a little bit, but...
Okay.
But I do want to say...
We can take the word exclusive out.
Yeah. I think it's a worthy thing that we're doing to provide this for domestic partners. So I thought other than that, the definitions.
Yeah, I mean, we could
one other thing that I think might be an issue in there, and that's on the very first thing, that they need to be residents of the town, because we have employees working for the highway that are not necessarily residents of the town.
Okay, so I will tweak that to apply to employees who are must be an employee, but not necessarily residents.
Yeah, I think that makes sense too.
And I think let me work on the word exclusive. I understand your concern about that. And then what I did was I recommended, and that would be an amendment to the definition sections of our employee handbook. And then I recommended that we amend section 806, which is the healthcare provisions. It describes who is covered, who is not covered, and how they're covered. I have language: a domestic partner of a town employee eligible for medical insurance coverage shall be eligible for coverage as a family member, provided the domestic partnership relationship between the two individuals satisfies the requirements of the definition of a domestic partnership as set forth in section 102 of the employee handbook, and all the provisions of section 806 with regard to eligibility for medical insurance coverage for a family member shall apply to such domestic partner or an employee of an employee, and domestic partner employee of the town shall be required, I put no later than January 15th of each year, or at such other time as the town specifies, to execute an affidavit indicating that there has been no change in the domestic partnership relationship. And I've added language that the town reserves the right to modify or eliminate domestic partnership coverage for an eligible employee upon 6 months written notice of such modification, just to cover the town in case at some future point it does not become financially appropriate for the town to provide such coverage. You can afford it now, but for some reason it becomes too expensive that you don't want to have that coverage. But you give them enough time to find other coverage. And I asked our human resources consultant to review it. He's fine with it, but he had a couple of comments. He indicated that the town board may want to give consideration as to whether a child of the domestic partner will also be eligible for family coverage, or maybe the MVP policy already allows for that. We can.
Does that also take into consideration? I'm sure if a child produced by that, couple, yes, would be covered. Thank you. Yeah, would be covered. But how about if
one has a child
that you're bringing into?
I think that's extending a little bit. I think, but
is that still although it's considered part of the family? I mean, I don't know.
I mean, you might want to think
you can
about
exclude that.
Certainly, if the couple adopts or produces a child, that would be they would be part of the family, and we could.
If a married couple has where one of the
Yeah.
brought a child into the
It
marriage.
would cover it.
Then I
So,
think it should.
so we
it should
should.
apply.
Okay.
I agree.
So I can add language to that, and I'll have Mr. Traeger just
Yep.
review it. And they wanted to know whether you wanted to include domestic partner under the bereavement leave and the family and medical leave policy. Okay, if you do, then
I mean, they're part of
Yeah, no, I mean,
it would apply to a family.
I
Why
hadn't thought about
wouldn't it
that.
apply here?
So either I or Mr. Traeger will come up language. So by the next town board meeting, I'll have a resolution so that we can make amendments to the handbook. And he also indicated that, and I was actually going to remind you of this because I just became aware of this, that there's all employees must now in New York State, through a recent budget amendment, adopt a written sexual harassment policy that meets or exceeds minimum standards developed by the New York State Department of Labor. We have a sexual harassment policy in our handbook. I don't know whether it meets those standards. Mr. Traeger indicated that he is willing, he's doing it for a lot of his clients, and he's willing to create one for us to include in our employee handbook. The fee was $275, which I think is a bargain. So if it's okay with you, I'm going to tell him to go ahead and do that. Okay? And then we can have that hopefully by the next meeting also. And I think, and there's all kinds of, you have to have sexual harassment training that will be in the
Annually.
in the amendment to the handbook. So hopefully we can get this done, but I do want you to have MVP review this.
It has been given to them, so.
Okay, so if they have any problems, let me know. Okay. The only other thing is I do have to discuss with you in executive session or attorney-client session, either one. I want to give you an update on litigation, and I do want to talk to you about an issue has come up with regard to what we call rounding of hours on our time clocks. And I think it's a sensitive enough issue involving personnel that we should discuss that in attorney-client session.
Should we have that before, at the end?
Pardon me?
Should we have executive session after the general comment at the end? I know there was some discussion on that.
We could do it then, at the end of the meeting here.
You want to wait till the end of the...
Yeah, we only have, actually,
And that's all I have.
the last thing on here is general comment period.
No, we have.
Oh, I'm sorry, we have, I guess yes, we do have. Abstracts. Special abstract dated August 27th, 2018, totaling $7,559.34, broken down as follows. A Fund, $2,976.75. DB Fund, $4,372.45. Payroll TNA, $210.15. Can I have a motion to accept the special abstract? Made by John Merwin, seconded by
Second.
Ralph Fidelli. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We have an abstract dated September 13th, 2018, totaling $179,998.19, broken down as follows. DB Fund, I'm sorry, A Fund, $54,427.49. B Fund, $4,156.79. DB Fund, $121,413.91. Can I have a motion to accept the abstract?
So moved.
Made by Chris Kennan, second by
Second.
John Midwood. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. next, the part of the agenda that everybody waits to see and hear about. Voucher committee meeting. Next month on voucher committee is John Merwin and Chris Kennett.
Okay, yeah,
We're in it again.
we could make Ralph do it.
Okay, with that, can I have a motion to go into executive session?
General comment, right? Just so everyone doesn't have to wait and then comment.
All right, but we have to, well,
Okay,
all right.
it's up to you. I mean, it's your
Do
call.
we have any comments? Yes, Bill?
I do. First one is about the ambulance costs.
Yes.
With Duchess.
Yeah.
Are they amenable to any sort of negotiation, or is it strictly a, here's our new bill for next year?
Well, no, actually, we're on the third year of a contract. There was negotiation after. We originally started out with a contract for $180,000. And that ran for 2 years. When that ran out, we had to negotiate a new contract. We went to several different companies to see what we could get. The best that we were able to get was with NDP, which happened to be our current provider. The increase in it was for how much the first year, John? It went from 180 to 240. Then it, well, actually going back. No, well, going back, it's 310 now. It's 310 now, and it went back. It was 240. It went to 240 is what it went. Yes. 240, then to, as I said, 310, and next year it will be 340. What we're working on now is there is a combination of Town of Northeast, Town of Amenia, and Town of Dover, as well as the Village of Millerton. Along with the county, in cooperation with the county, to see what type of a program we might be able to get at looking at a regional approach to this, and what savings hopefully that there might be there.
How long might that take to implement starting from now?
It's not going to be until actually next year's when each of the towns' contracts run out next year. We tried to push them to try to get something this year. We couldn't get it done in the short time period that they had given us. And unfortunately, we needed to budget, something in, for our budgets. So it couldn't take place this year. However, we're working on it for next year.
Good luck. Okay, my second question is on another subject. Is it possible to get a brief description of the litigations that the town is currently involved in, including information like whether it was initiated by the town, initiated by another party, what the, whether it's a new or ongoing, just basic stuff so that we have an idea of what the situation is. Because at the last meeting, I think it was mentioned that there was no current litigation, but apparently now there is some.
Yeah,
Warren, would you-
I'll tell you what I can tell you. It's a human rights violation filed by an employee, former employee, against the town.
Thank you.
That's all I can tell you.
Yes?
So could you clarify whether it is a client attorney session or a executive session?
I couldn't hear.
Whether it's an executive session or whether it's an attorney-client.
Executive session.
Executive session. Yes. Anything else? If not, then can I have a motion to go into executive session? Made by John Merwin, seconded by,
Please make the motion per open meeting law.
pardon me?
Please make the motions to comply with open meeting law. You know what I'm saying? You've got to say,
What reason
I'd
we're
like to
going?
I'd like to make a motion to go into executive session for the purposes of discussing something that the open
Okay.
meeting law says is allowed.
Can I have a motion to go into executive session so that we can have a discussion concerning a legal matter?
Well, it'd be the human rights violation.
Human
we referred
rights.
to, and what was the other
Violation.
thing? The time clock issue.
Oh,
It's a
yeah.
personnel issue.
Time clock, yes. Okay,
All right, who's gonna second that? I have John first.
I'll second it.
All right, and then George,
aye.
John,
Aye.
Ralph,
Aye.
Chris,
Aye.
John.
Yeah. Well, they came out of a
Yeah. Motion to come back into session,
So moved. Second.
made by John Merwin, seconded by Chris Kennan. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Made by John Midwood, seconded by Ralph Fidelli. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.